Brand new series starting today. You don't want to miss this.
The program you are about to watch is part of a free series we are making available to you as a gift from Greg Fritz Ministries, entitled Receiving Divine Healing. Visit gregfritz.org to download the MP3s and watch the streaming video for free by entering code FREE at checkout. Are you tired of hearing bad news? Tune into the good news of the gospel. Welcome to Good News with Greg Fritz.
Hello, I'm Greg Fritz. Welcome to the Good News program. We're starting a new series today that I've called Receiving Divine Healing, and we are going to break this down. We're going to give you the nuts and bolts of divine healing and receiving it by faith. And I believe it's going to be a very helpful series, and I think that it's going to be one that you're going to want to get. I've got different offers for you, free offers as well, but subjects like this, in order to work well, we've got to feed on them from time to time, and it just helps if you listen to it or watch it over and over again. And so we've made that possible. And I want to make mention of this because we have an expanded version of the study notes. We do have all of the notes for the teaching. It'll be 20 sessions at least. I think it's going to be 20. But I've also included in this outline, in the study notes, I've included all the scriptures for healing, Old and New Testament, starting in Genesis all the way through. All the scriptures that promise divine healing. And every incident, which we will cover in this series, but every incident where people were healed by faith in the New Testament. And so that'll be helpful. These things are going to build our faith as we go through them one by one, and you can get all that information in the study notes, and they are free. You can go to the website, to the study note tab, and download Receiving Divine Healing, and all of that is there, or we'll mail them to you. So feel free to call and ask for the study notes. We'd be happy to mail those to you so that you can have this information, and you can follow along with the teaching as well. So I'm going to begin here and talk about receiving healing, period, and divide it into two groups, into two different categories: receiving divine healing and receiving divine healing by faith. And you might think, well, is there any other way to get healed by the power of God other than by faith? Yes, there is. And I want to cover that first, because primarily we're going to teach you how to receive healing from God by faith, because that was God's preferred method, and the people who received healing by faith always received. They always got what they came for. They approached Jesus, they accepted and believed that His healing power was available to them, and they were able to receive for themselves, and the same is true today. So we're going to spend most of our time talking about how to receive divine healing by faith. This is the fourth series that I've done on this program on healing, and it is the most important, because this one talks about how a believer can go to God and receive their healing, God's preferred method. We spent a lot of time proving that healing is the will of God in the series Healing for All, and then we spent time talking about healing as part of our redemption, in healing belongs to us, and also the origin of sickness and disease. And it came from the fall of man, and it's enforced by Satan. And so we looked at the origin of sickness and disease. I talked about the objections that people have to divine healing. This is a standalone series, and I want to talk about receiving divine healing by faith. And I want to go back to my original question: is there any other way to receive divine healing? And yes, there is, and it would be through the gifts of healings, or the working of miracles, or a combination of the two. And I want to look at a couple of examples of this, because this confuses people. God doesn't just heal by gifts of healing and by working of miracles. And you might say, well, I believed for my healing, I had hands laid on me, and God healed me. Was that not a miracle? Yes, and that was a healing, but there are gifts of healing and working of miracles that are under the 12 or the 9 gifts of the Spirit in 1 Corinthians 12. And when people are healed by a gift of healing or a miracle, they don't necessarily have to have faith. In fact, there are people who were skeptics, who have been skeptical of God and God's healing power, that have been healed in meetings and in places where they didn't have any faith at all. Just a gift of healing or a working a miracle. And that happens, but it's not consistent. In other words, it doesn't happen for everyone all the time. However, when you learn how to receive by faith from God any of His blessings, you can determine when you receive that. It's an important distinction because you can get in the ditch on one side or the other. Some people think that God can heal, you just never know when or where God's going to heal. And that's actually true when it comes to working of miracles and gifts of healings. You don't know when and where that's going to happen and to who it's going to happen to. And then other people don't leave any room for that, and they just think if you're going to get it, you've got to believe God for it, and that's the only way to get it. Well, it's not the only way, but it's the sure way. Every person who approached Jesus by faith received. Not one time did He say, I'm not going to heal you. Now, He did caution them for lack of faith, and he worked with their faith, which we're going to look at these examples, but not one time when someone came to Him in faith did they fail to receive. And I believe that's true today, that if we will believe God, and the book that I love concerning healing is Christ the Healer by F.F. Bosworth, and he made this statement, and it is true. He said, learning to receive your healing from God is a greater blessing in your life by faith. Learning to receive healing from God by faith is a greater blessing in your life than the healing itself. Because once you learn how to receive from God by faith, then you can receive other things at other times the same way. And so we're going to really focus on that. I believe this is going to help you and bless you. I encourage you to follow along in this teaching. It has a cumulative effect. And if this is an area that you've been lacking in, just this teaching is designed to build your faith in the area of healing and help you get healed. I want to help people receive their healing through this series. I want to help you receive your healing from God. And if you've struggled with healing, I encourage you to watch this. If you have questions or concerns about divine healing, I think there are a lot of questions will be answered. A lot of clarity will come as we listen. And this is one of them, one of the points that I believe will bring clarity. Can you receive healing without faith? Yes. Through the gifts, the manifestation of the gifts. Let me give you an example of that in John chapter 5. In John chapter 5, and we'll just start in verse 1. And it says, after this, there was a feast of the Jews, and Jesus went up to Jerusalem. Now there is in Jerusalem by the sheep gate a pool, which is called in Hebrew Bethesda, having 5 porches. In these lay a great multitude of sick people, blind, lame, paralyzed, waiting for the moving of the water. For an angel went down at a certain time into the pool and stirred up the water. And whoever stepped in first after the stirring of the water was made well of whatever disease he had. So this in itself is an example of the gifts of healings and working of miracles. This pool would be stirred from time to time by an angel, which I'm pretty sure they couldn't see, but they saw that the water was stirred, and they just knew that the first person that jumped in the water would be healed of anything that they had. And so this was a manifestation of the healing power of God to the people of that time. So because this was well known, this pool was surrounded by sick people. And there were different porches where people laid and waited for the stirring of the water so that maybe they could be the first one in. And so Jesus walked onto this scene. Now notice how these gifts work. It didn't work for everyone all the time. It didn't work all the time. It was sporadic. It was consistent, but it was sporadic. It would happen. It wasn't on a schedule. That's why people had to just camp out there, because they didn't know if it's going to be the same time every day or every week, and it wasn't. It was at different times. So it was surrounded by sick people, and it was a sign that God heals the sick. People knew that God was doing it, and they knew that people were being healed, but not everyone got healed of everything all the time, just the first person in. So Jesus walks up to this mass of sick people. In verse 5, a certain man was there who had an infirmity 38 years. And when Jesus saw him lying there, he knew that he had been in that condition a long time. And he said, "Do you want to be made well?" Which is, kind of an obvious question. He wouldn't have been there if he didn't want to be made well. But, this is something else about healing. God's not just going to heal people just because they need it. If you need healing in your body, God's not going to get to a point where He feels so sorry for you that He's just going to heal you. It's important that we make our requests known, that we take a time and a place where we choose to believe God to receive our healing. And so he said, "Do you want to be made well?" And the sick man answered, "Sir, I have no one to put me in the pool when the water is stirred, but while I'm coming, another steps down before me." And Jesus said to him, "Rise, take up your bed and walk." And immediately the man was made well. He took up his bed and walked, and that day was the Sabbath day. So this was a gift of healing, working a miracle. One of those two gifts, or a combination of the two. It was a demonstration of the mercy of God and the power of God in this man's body. He wasn't believing for Jesus to heal him, obviously. He was still focused on the pool. In fact, he was looking for someone to help get him in the pool quicker, faster, more timely, because he told Jesus, I can't get healed. Basically, Jesus said, "Do you want to be healed?" And he said, "I can't get healed because I don't get into the pool. Somebody always gets in before me." Had no idea that Jesus was going to heal him right then and there without even getting in the pool. He didn't really even have that notion. So he couldn't have been believing for that. And so Jesus just exercised this spiritual gift, healed this man with very little cooperation, and then he left. He didn't start a healing meeting. He didn't heal everyone else there. He didn't wave his hand and cause everyone to get healed and go home. He didn't preach a sermon. It was just one gift, one manifestation. Of course, we've recorded it, or we have it recorded here in the Bible, and it's encouraging, and it makes a statement that God's in the healing business, but that kind of healing does not work for everyone all the time. Now, thank God for signs and wonders. Thank God for gifts of the Spirit. Thank God for miracle healings. But the point here is if let's say there was 1,000 people there at that pool, this is the only one that we know of where Jesus just did a manifestation of healing in his life without his faith. So this helps us understand that sometimes God does these things, but as believers, we don't have to sit back and wait and hope that one day Jesus or some evangelist or someone with the gifts and the miracle working power of God is going to come heal us. You could wait the rest of your life for that and never see that happen. That's really not what the gifts of the Spirit are for. They're to advertise the goodness of God. They're to advertise the power and the glory of God. They're to help people decide, I'm going to believe in this God, because that's God's ultimate. He wants you and I to believe for His best in our lives for ourselves. And if you think about it, I mean, God, He could have set up His kingdom any way He wanted to, but we all know, if you watch this program, that God likes faith. I have a whole book on that, and the more I study faith, the more I understand that God does like faith. His highest and best for His people are that we would believe God for ourselves, that we wouldn't have to depend on some evangelist or some preacher or some believer, some holy saint of God to come and put healing on us, but that we could follow the example of those in the Bible, in the New Testament, who approached Jesus by faith, and it worked for them. It'll work for us. And the greatest example of that, and we'll cover it more than once in this teaching, is the woman with the issue of blood. Jesus, after she was miraculously healed by faith, looked at her and said, "Daughter, your faith has made you whole." And I want to tell you, if her faith could make her whole, then your faith can make you whole. My faith can make me whole. And that's the the real point that we want to make in this teaching is it's not all lost, and you could have been waiting for your healing or even trying to be healed for decades. But let's just start over. Let's just reset and make this statement. If her faith could make her whole, your faith can make you whole. And so there are many times when people are guilty, and I say that in a generic way. I'm not accusing anyone, but they're guilty of waiting on God to do some sign or wonder or miracle in their life, when really what they should be doing is learning how to approach God by faith and possessing or receiving what God's already done. And I hope you can see the difference, because this hangs a lot of people up. Like I said, this guy was, say, 1 out of 1,000. I don't want to be 1 out of 1,000. I don't like those odds. Yes, he did get healed. And yes, Jesus did approach him and heal him with no faith of his own. But there was 999 other people there that are still waiting for God to do something. They were still waiting for a manifestation. And chances are many of them died without their healing. I don't like those odds. I like the odds of the majority of the people that were healed by Jesus in Jesus' ministry that we have record of. The majority of them were healed by their own faith. And there was not one case of someone coming to Jesus in faith where that person failed to receive. So that's 100%. I like that better than 1 out of 1,000. And so rather than focus on the 1 out of 1,000, we're going to learn how to be part of that group that would not be denied. And you know, any one of us can do this. These people were not special. They were not marked out by God or set apart by God to do these great faith exploits. They were just normal people. That's why we have so many examples in the Gospels of people who came to Jesus by faith. It shows that there were all kinds, men and women. They were different ages, and they came to Jesus, and every single one of them received what they came for. So, you know, I believe this teaching is important. It could be a matter of life and death for some. So I approach it very seriously and methodically. We want to walk you through this step by step. I want to give you another example of someone who was healed by a working of miracles, and I'll prove it to you in Acts chapter 3. Acts chapter 3, and starting in verse 1, says, "Now Peter and John went up together to the temple at the hour of prayer, the 9th hour, and a certain man, lame from his mother's womb, was carried, whom they laid daily at the gate of the temple, which is called Beautiful, to ask alms from those who entered the temple." So this man, let's get this straight, he was coming to the temple for alms, for money, not for healing. It wasn't even in his mind that he could go to the temple and get healed. He went to the temple to get money. And so they laid him there daily, and he'd been there for a long time. And here's the thing. Jesus had walked through that very gate many times, and that man was never healed. That man never approached Jesus by faith, as far as we know. There's no record of it. He never approached the apostles by faith. His only interaction with the apostles was to get money. That he was a beggar, and that's how he supported himself. And so he was not believing for healing. He probably didn't even believe in divine healing. Now you can contrast him with some of the people like blind Bartimaeus, who wouldn't be quiet because he believed so much that Jesus could heal him. He was demanding an audience with Jesus, and he got it. Jairus, who came to Jesus for his daughter, said, "If you'll lay your hands on her, she will live." Now that's faith. This man was not exercising faith in any way. He was simply there to collect money from the benevolent gifts of those who went in and out of the temple. He was there to support his life and to buy food. So healing was not what he was believing for. It was money is what he was believing for. Verse 3, "Who seeing Peter and John about to go into the temple, asked for alms." Now, you compare this again to all of these other people who came to Jesus by faith and received. They were not asking for money. They were asking for healing. They were believing for healing. They knew that Jesus was a healer. That is so important. That's an important distinction. So he asked them for money, and verse 4, this is how the gifts of the Spirit work. They work as the Spirit wills. Not always for every person, but they do work. And evidently, Peter sensed that unction and that something special is going to happen right here, right now. And fixing his eyes on him with John, Peter said, "Look at us." So he gave them his attention, expecting to receive something from them. So again, he's even more expectant now to get money. And now if you'd have told him you can have money or you can have healing, what do you choose? I'm sure he would have chosen healing, but he didn't even know it was on the list. All he was hoping for was to get enough to survive. And so Peter said, "Silver and gold I do not have, but what I do have I give to you. In the name of Jesus Christ of Nazareth, rise up and walk." What a great example of the will of God. God does not want us to be dependent on others. He wants to heal us, make us whole, give us ability so that we can make our own way in life. And part of the way He does that is through walking by faith. He doesn't want us to be looking for handouts in the area of money or in the area of the blessings of God. And preachers are supposed to be trying to preach themselves out of a job. A true evangelist, his goal is to get everyone in the world saved so he can retire, which hasn't happened yet. But others of us who teach the believers, who teach the church, our job is not to make people dependent on us, but it's to help people grow so that they can relate to God for themselves. And any preacher that creates dependence or dependency just on them is doing people a disservice. God wants to cause the church to grow up and to begin to walk by faith and relate to Him directly. And thank God for the benefit of teachers and preachers and pastors and evangelists and all that they do and they add. But man, this life is between you and God directly. There's not a middleman anymore. Jesus took every barrier out of the way. And so God didn't want to just give that man money. He wanted to heal that man so he could make his own money. And that's what the man wanted himself. And so he was healed not by any faith of his own. And to show you how you can't just depend on the gifts of the Spirit to come and rescue you, this man was there through the ministry of Jesus, and he never received anything. He never received healing, obviously, because he was still lame. So what a testimony. I mean, the man sat there at that gate through the entire ministry of Jesus. Jesus went in and out of the temple, and he never received healing. Then all of a sudden, Peter and John were there, and this Spirit moved in this special way. In fact, I want to take you to 1 Corinthians 12 and just show you how this is not meant, it's not meant for us to live on. This is simply a method whereby God can advertise His goodness and His mercy to people. Verse 4 in 1 Corinthians 12, there are diversities of gifts, but the same Spirit. There are differences of ministries, but the same Lord. And there are diversities of activities. And then he goes on to say, let's see here in verse 11, but one and the same Spirit works all these things. All the gifts of the Spirit are operated by the Spirit, distributing to each one individually as He wills. So when it comes to these gifts operating, it's as He wills. When it comes to your faith operating, it's as you will. You decided when you got saved, not the Holy Spirit. He didn't decide to all of a sudden save you after all those years of being lost. You decided when to believe God for salvation. Jairus decided when to believe God for his daughter. The woman with the issue of blood decided when she was going to believe God for her miracle. Jesus didn't even know she was coming. So if there was an appointed time, it hadn't happened yet because Jesus didn't know about it. So she decided, and that's what's important to note the difference here. But one and the same Spirit works all these things, distributing to each one individually as He wills. So He decides who operates in what gift, and He decides when and where these gifts operate. They're wonderful. I believe we're going to have more of them. Thank God for it. But there's a better way for you and I as believers to receive from God, and it's by faith. So when we talk about receiving divine healing, we're specifically talking about receiving it by faith. That worked 100% of the time in the Gospels, and it works today. So I hope you got something out of the introduction. Like I said, we have a long way to go. Get the study notes. Let me just say this. We have a bundle that includes all of this teaching, and you may have to call the helpline and just talk to them about this, because I packed everything I could. All 20 sessions of this TV program will be included in this bundle in audio and video. The study notes are going to be in this bundle. It's on a USB drive. The study notes will be there, and then we'll have the examples of healing in the New Testament, all the healing scriptures, and then I've added the objections to divine healing. It's 5 sessions, audio and video. That's in this bundle. It will feed your faith. You can play this in your car on audio. You can play it in your smart TV on video, and you can watch and feed on it, and I encourage you to do so. We have got to be serious about feeding on along the lines of faith and healing for it to work in our lives when we need it. And so we've done everything, I've done everything I can to just prepare this spiritual food for you, and it's up to you to partake of it, to receive it, eat it every day, and I believe it'll make a difference in your life. Well, we've run out of time. We're going to continue with this teaching in the next episode. You don't want to miss that. Until then, remember this, the good news is so good, the bad news doesn't matter.
The majority of those who received their healing during Jesus' earthly ministry were healed by faith. And you can be too. Get this series and prepare to receive your divine healing. Call our helpline at 918-749-7744 Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. Central Time.
If you like the teaching on this program, I would encourage you to pray about becoming a partner. We are believing God for 100 new partners. We've already reached part of our goal. We need 100 more. And I would encourage you to be one of those special people that would join our army that's already been raised up, our Good News Army, and partner with this ministry. The ways to connect are on the screen. You can give a one-time gift, a recurring gift. You can call the helpline. You can text to give. There are many ways to connect with us. Go to the website, call the helpline, pray about being a partner with me today.
I love Greg. I love his sense of humor. I love how he bring out the word. I just love Greg. Awesome man of God.
Immediately he became a favorite teacher of mine because he delivers the Word of God with such warmth and balance and great clarity.
He's just straight to the point and down to earth, and just to let go, be happy.
I've been in ministry years. I've never heard anybody teach like this, and I had breakthrough today that's going to impact other people. I am so grateful for Greg Fritz.